Hey guys, we're joined here with Joey Spencer, the two-time PBC Prospect of the Year. Joey, it's good to see you. Great to talk to you during this difficult moment that we're all living together with COVID-19. But I want to start off with, you know, how you're doing, how you are coping with this situation that we face.
Yeah, I mean, this is a crazy situation for everybody. We're all uh, pretty much all of us are quarantined right now and just trying to hope for the best and trying to stay safe. Um, Luckily, I haven't been too immediately affected by the disease, by the virus. Nobody in my family, nobody in my immediate family or extended family has gotten the virus or been uh, strongly affected by it. At least there's a couple closer friends that have had parents who have gotten it, things like that. But everybody that I know has recovered. So everything's good, and we're just, like I said, hoping for the best and staying safe.
And thankfully none of your, like you mentioned, really close family and friends have been
Mhm.
affected by it, but you personally were in a sense affected by having your April 11th fight being canceled.
Absolutely.
How did that affect you? How tough was that for you?
Yeah, that was a tough one because we had trained a hard 7 weeks, coming right off of my last fight. We went pretty much right back into training camp and trained for a good 7 weeks, and then the fight got canceled 2 weeks out from the actual date. And yeah, that was a tough one, but I mean, it was hard to complain because everybody was pretty much in the same situation. So yeah, it stinks, but I mean, I know so many different guys who had gotten canceled. I mean, at the end of the day, I would have had to been in. There was a few guys who were just in a perfect situation where they fought at the right time to where they weren't in camp when this whole thing went down, so they didn't have any date lined up. But for the most part, a lot of guys did and got delayed or canceled, and I couldn't really complain because certain people got canceled literally after they had already done their weight cut and were like 2 days from the fight, like Shakur's card and like Michaela Meyer and things like that. So yeah, I it would have been worse if that was the situation. So I was training and I got a good training camp in where I improved a lot. So no training camp goes to waste because you get stronger every camp and get better and work on different things. So I was glad to have the camp behind me and that I wasn't in a situation where I'd already traveled to where I was going to fight and then it got canceled the day before. So it's just how you look at things, I guess, right?
I know. Oh, you could look at it in a different way where, I mean, congratulations. You recently got married in December, correct?
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much. I
Anywhere
appreciate it.
between the first year, you're still you're newlywed. And
Yes.
if you look at the positive in the middle of this difficult moment that we're living at, I guess you can appreciate to be able to spend a little bit more time with your bride, right? I know you
Absolutely.
guys were planning on going to a honeymoon. I don't know if you guys got the chance to go or because of the virus traveling stopped as well.
Yeah, so we basically that's been a kind of a roller coaster. We got married and we had a little bit of time set to take a trip, and we didn't have the trip planned yet because we knew better than to do that with my schedule kind of being a little bit weird sometimes. And then luckily we didn't, because then I got the call that we were going to be fighting at a totally different time than what I thought we were going to be. So I needed to go right into training camp. So then after I went into training camp and then fought, then we were going to go after that fight. But then I pretty much had a back-to-back date, which was going to be my April fight. So then we were like, all right, well, we'll have that after the April fight. And then the April fight got canceled and then the quarantine started. But this is as good as a time as any to kind of take a little mini honeymoon, even though we didn't take a trip. You know, we're stuck together 24/7. So in a good way, I'm glad we got to take time because I pretty much was working around the clock and she was working too full time. So this kind of gave us an opportunity to both have time off and spend it together. So it's been good. Definitely, you can look at it. It really sucks for the people that it's negatively affected, but you know um, I'm very blessed and we've got a good situation here.
Right. I think we always have to try to look at the positive in the middle of everything that's going on. Of course, some people are affected way more drastically with
100%.
with being sick or having their loved ones pass away. But if we're staying home and just if we're stuck at home, might as well be with your new bride. So
Exactly.
I mean, you just turned 20 last month,
I
right?
did. I
You
did.
you
Yeah,
you
I
you,
did.
you celebrated a quarantine birthday.
I did. Yeah, I did.
What
Yeah,
did you do?
20 years old.
Anything different that you're able to
No,
do?
but you know what? I probably would have done the same thing. Either way, I tell people, I'm kind of a homebody. Just kind of a simpler dude anyway. So my birthday, we got some pizza and watched movies, and that's probably what I would have done anyway. I'm not uh, much for going out, and I mean sometimes I do enjoy that and stuff like that. But I got together with my family, and my mom made us dinner, and me and my wife went over to my parents. Because at that point, we were still kind of in contact. We've been quarantined separate since then, but at that point we had been together so much because me and my dad had been training. So we went over there, and they made us dinner, and it's pretty much what I would have done anyway. So I enjoyed myself.
Well, that's good. I'm good to hear that. Happy belated birthday once again. Um,
Thank you.
so that makes you 19 years old when you got married in
Yes.
December. I'm wondering if people ask you all the time, why get married at such a young age?
Well, me and Tab is my wife, Tabitha. We've been together from the time when we met when we were in sixth grade, actually, and we've been together for a really long time. I feel like I knew exactly what I wanted. It was always just a matter of time for me and her as far as when we were going to get married. And when people do ask me that question, I always just say, honestly, there's no better. A lot of people ask me it from a boxing standpoint, like if it'll make me lose focus or if it's the right time to get married and things like that. And for me, the way I feel about it is, I feel like it's the best thing for a young guy like me, especially who's focused on his career and focused on making it to the next level. Because um, I'm not going to be, thinking about running off to the club after my fights or in between fights or, partying or being out with the guys and things like that. It's me and, I work and then I'm home with my wife, and she helps me in so many different ways, as far as my career goes, as far as with my cooking and my nutrition. And she works hand in hand with my dad as far as my supplements. And, it really just, she's my biggest helper, and I really couldn't do it without her.
That's very sweet. That's a very sweet story. I actually married my high school sweetheart, and I guess you beat me. You married your middle school sweetheart, right?
Yeah, yeah, middle school, yep, sixth grade. Yeah,
Wow.
so it's really been a great situation, and I just feel like if people ask me that sometimes, but the people who are closer to me kind of know my personality too, and I feel like we all need different things, and I think that was definitely the best thing for me. She's definitely the love of my life, and it was I think the perfect time. Waiting any longer, I feel like, um, or not getting married maybe for the wrong reasons might have been could have been a downfall, just not being focused on the right things. And I definitely think that it's a good thing in my life.
That's great. Great to hear. Congratulations once again on
Thank you.
on, on your marriage.
Thank you.
When you look at your near future in boxing terms, do you see yourself contending for a title at some point at the 154 division, or what weight class are you looking at?
So I've been fighting my fights at 156, which has been right in between, just because my management feels like, why cut all the way down? I really don't know if I'm still growing. I'm only 19. I'm 20 now, but still growing into my full man body. So why cut the weight every time when I don't know if I'm going to be contending for a title at 160 or 154? So if I had to say, I'd probably say 154 is going to be where I make my first title run and start to become a contender and things like that, and start to actually cut down to the full 154 pound weight class. And that's probably going to be happening in the next 2 years. So I'm 20 right now. I think by the end of this kind of this last fight shouldn't stall us out. Getting canceled shouldn't stall us out too much, but we're right on schedule to be probably contending for a title, being in that contention by the end of my 21st year, if not sometime in my 22nd year. That's been my goal since the beginning. I've always said that. And I think actually my dog's not gone; he's right here. But I think that by my 22nd year, I'll definitely be fighting for a title. That's my goal. So I don't want to rush things. I want to make sure that we're doing things with good timing. But at the same time, I think that if I look at how my career is progressing, I think that by the time I'm 22, where my career is at, I think I'll be ready.
Nice. So now, obviously, with that, at that point, you would have several more fights under your belt.
Yeah.
And with the craziness that's been going on in the 154 division, who knows, honestly, who will be having the belts. We obviously be fighting with PBC. You saw the full circle and all this with Jason Rosario taking the belts from J-Rock and Jerry Hurt. Well, now obviously Rosario has the titles. You also have Charlo in there taking it back from Harrison, and you also have Teixeira from Golden Boy Promotions. We don't know if you'll ever have a chance to be able to fight with them, but how do you see the 154 division in regards to the champions? How do you see that landscape?
Personally, I still think that Julian Williams is the best in the division. To be honest, if I had to say myself, I think that even though he lost that fight, I think that he wasn't at his best that night. I just believe that, and I, know some people in his camp, and I feel like he would. I don't think he would ever make the excuse. I just think that he wasn't at his best. I think there were some things up, and I think that he's a better fighter than Jason Rosario, and I think he would have won that fight on any other night. And I think that he had to handle. He got a surgery, I think, and that's why he didn't take the rematch. But I would have liked to seen that rematch because I think he would have gotten it done. And I think him and Charlo are the best in the division. With Harrison right there behind, he was up on my scorecard when he fought Charlo before he got knocked out. So that is an incredible fight. You could even argue for them to have a third fight just because even though the first fight was controversial, the second fight was so closely contested, and Harrison, in a lot of people's eyes, was up on the scorecards if he would have finished the fight. So that could even have a third fight to figure that out. And personally, like what you said, it's hard for me to say, where the division will be when I get there. For all I know, all the welterweights of today will be, or not all of them, but a few welterweights of today might be up and be the junior middleweights of tomorrow, because once Charlo and him unify, if another 2 years goes by before I get to the title, or a year and a half goes by, a lot happens in that period of time. And once somebody unifies the division, it's only one thing to do is move up, So some of the same guys might be there, and some of them might not be anywhere near, might be at 160, and there might be a whole new crop of dudes at 154 by then. But as of right now, it's a really interesting division. You got Harrison, Lara's still there. You got Julian Williams and Rosario, and it's really just probably one of the most exciting divisions in the sport right now.
It is. It is very very exciting to see what's all the changes that are happening in the 154. And when you mentioned them possibly moving on at some point to 160, when you mentioned middleweight and even super middleweight and even 175, of course we always think of first thing that comes to mind right now is Canelo. And I know that some people have compared you to Canelo, some similarities. Do you see any of the similarities between you and Canelo?
I think that we're like built similar. I think is where a lot of it comes from, is we're built similar. And a lot of people just say we kind of look alike other than the red hair. And so I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And then also when I just coming up, he was like my favorite guy, him and a few other guys, but he was one of the main guys that I watched just growing up in the amateur since he turned pro so young. And so I've definitely picked up on some of his tendencies that I've kind of made my own and things like that, and some of my mannerisms in the ring. And I think that, people are starting to notice that a little bit. And, it's kind of a mixture of a few different people that I've watched growing up and things like that. But, I can see where people would kind of get that comparison. He's definitely one of my favorite active guys in the game right now, for sure.
And speaking of Canelo, there's been talks about him going back to 160 and taking on Golovkin for the Trilogy. Are you interested in seeing that fight?
I am interested. I mean, look, Triple G and him are both warriors, and I feel like they're like kind of born competitors against each other, like born rivals. And even though I think that Triple G is kind of not the same version of himself that fought Canelo the first time. And I also believe Canelo is just a even better version of himself that fought the first time. Like, I feel like they're kind of going separate ways. Like, Canelo's going right up to the peak of his career, and then Triple G's kind of crossing over the hill a little bit at this point. And I personally think if they fought again, that Canelo would end up stopping him. I believe that pretty strongly, just with the way the last fight was going, and even more time has gone since then. And then also Triple G's last fight, he didn't really, look like his best self. And I think that if Canelo fought him now, I think that Canelo would probably stop him, and the ref would probably step in and beat him. But I think that Triple G is definitely not going to go anywhere easily, and he's a warrior, and he's not gonna lay down. So it's gonna be a heck of a fight the whole time. So definitely, I'm interested in seeing the fight, because any way you slice it's going to be an entertaining fight. And I think boxing fans kind of get spoiled sometimes. I think especially with Canelo, with the way that people kind of criticize, like, every move he makes isn't the right move. It seems like when you read comments and you see what people say about him, every move he makes is the wrong one. I mean, who's chasing greatness more than Canelo right now in the sport? He basically can just take his pick and fight anybody, and I believe he's going to get to everybody in his path. And who else has options in 3 different weight classes?
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, a guy with that many options, people are going to want to see him fight different people, but he can fight anybody among 3 weight classes. He's basically controlling all the divisions. If not controlling them, he's definitely at the top of each division, or near the top. And he's definitely making moves like nobody else is. So it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, you make a good point about how boxing fans, sometimes no matter what you say or do, they'll always have something to say. So
Definitely.
as a fighter, how much of a boxing fan are you? Obviously, you trained for yourself and you have your fights, but how much of a boxing fan are you that you sit down and watch the other fights?
Oh, huge boxing fan. That's why I'm in this game. It's since I was a little kid, that's how I got into the sport, is watching fights with my dad since I was 5, 6 years old. It's one of my earliest memories of the sport, is watching boxing. And that's what I did my entire life, is watch fights all day long, every single day, since I was a little kid. It's been my favorite thing to do. So definitely I'm a big fan of the sport, just the way everything, plays out inside the ring for other people as well as myself. That's the part I like about the sport more, is watching it. It's actually having to get in there and take the shots,
I know.
But I love being in there too.
What do you think about this new generation of fighters that includes yourself, but you also have other fighters like Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia,
Mm-hmm.
Devin Haney,
Mm-hmm.
Virgil Ortiz, Delfimo Lopez, all these new guys that are, like I said, including yourself, that are making lots of noise. How do you see this generation in boxing?
This generation is incredible, and I think it goes back to what I was talking about boxing fans kind of getting spoiled in a way. I'm sorry, I'm getting a call. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yeah, no problem. I see you.
Sorry about that. I think boxing fans kind of getting spoiled, because when you look at those young fighters that what in the world? Sorry.
They really want you.
So when you look at that generation of fighters, and when you look at, the way that, I don't think people realize how special of a group of fighters that you just named right there. As far as Shakur I think Shakur is a future pound for pound level type dude. I think he's the best out of that group that you just said. I've been watching him since I was a kid in the amateurs, him being a few years ahead of me, and just really seeing him just pick apart. Like, you had the top guys in the amateurs, and he always had a deep division when you'd watch him fight in the tournaments, because he was in a weight class that was usually pretty stacked, and he would just take guys apart, and it was always something that I really admired. And everybody admired it. Everybody at the tournaments, he was the guy that you watched. And then Devin as well, and I remember watching when Devin and Ryan would fight, because they were all a year or two ahead of me. So when I would first start to get to the nationals in that age group and things like that, they'd be the older guys, and everyone was looking forward to seeing Ryan and Devin fight. And those fights were sweet. I was there for a couple different ones, watching Teofimo win the Olympic trials and things like that. And now they're all in pros and, doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're all showing out. But people, like I said, people don't realize how special that group is. That group, you see so many people talking about how they're all hype and this and that. And, they have a lot of supporters as well. But, they don't realize, like, these are the guys. They're not going anywhere. And at the end of the day, none of those guys are all hype, even I feel like the main person, because he's the biggest as far as the name goes, that people talk about being all hype, is Ryan Garcia. He's not all hype. He's like I don't know the exact number, but he's at least got probably 8, 9 national championships as an amateur. How can that guy be all hype? Like, this is really top level pedigree on each and every one of those guys that you just named. So we're seeing the next generation now, and it's pretty cool to see them start to pick up their titles one by one, and it's really inspiring because, like I said, in the amateurs, seeing them be one age group or age bracket above me, and then now they're starting to pick away and win their titles. And so that is pretty much the same timeline. So that makes me believe, like, all right, 2 more years and I've got mine, and it's just cool to watch, and it's definitely inspiring. It just keeps me working hard with my head down and just hoping for the best. And I'm really excited to start to get into that point.
Right, and like you mentioned, some of the names in that list would, of course, Shakur, who's already had a title, Teofimo becoming champion recently.
Yep.
Teofimo has a big task if everything plans out well and boxing returns and they're able to carry out that fight between Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko. That's a mega fight right there. Looking at that fight between them two, do you think that's a 50-50 fight, or do you give an edge to one of those two fighters?
I give an edge to Teofimo, and it's definitely probably a very unpopular opinion, but I feel like, also, speaking of, like, just common, things that are said by the fans and things like that, people refer so much to so much things to being hype, but then they take things at face value so much, as far as, like, Lomachenko is Lomachenko. And this is how it's always been. So, like, when Ali fought Sonny Liston, Ali didn't become Ali till after he beat Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston, nobody picked Cassius Clay to beat Sonny Liston until he did. So Lomachenko and Teofimo fighting Lomachenko, he's got that similar type opportunity here. Teofimo is the real deal, and after this fight, I believe he's going to win this fight, and then he'll be that guy, that everybody believes in. I think that people aren't giving him any shot just because Lomachenko is Lomachenko. He's done so much. He's so good. He won the 2 gold medals, and they're just looking at that, and they're not looking at who he's going up against, which is a younger, hungrier fighter that he's coming in to fight. And it's definitely the best fighter that he's fought in a number of fights. And if you look at the fights that Lomachenko has fought lately, he hasn't had his best performances in the last 2-3 fights. And you definitely can't say that he's fought anybody as good as Teofimo in his last 2-3 fights either. So I definitely think that this could be Teofimo's coming out party. And not that Lomachenko isn't great and an absolute legend. It's just that he's getting older, and this is, a perfect time for Teofimo to come in and take everything that Lomachenko has. And it's a great opportunity for him because, like I said, your greatest opportunities come when nobody's giving you a shot. And Teofimo has a real shot to win this fight, but nobody's really giving it to him. And that's going to make it even bigger of a win when he goes out there and if he can get the job done.
Those are all valid points, and that's why this fight is so intriguing and so necessary for boxing when it does return. Hopefully we get to see it. I would love to see it this year. So, I mean, at some point, hopefully we get to see it. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long. And another mega fight that I just want to get your thoughts really quick.
Yeah.
With Wilder Fury.
Yeah.
We obviously saw what happened in February, that Tyson just shocking us and dominating Wilder.
Absolutely.
This fight, the trilogy was supposed to happen in July. Now they're talking about October. When this fight does come around, do you think that Wilder has enough to change things around and give a competitive fight, or even get the win?
I think, in my opinion, I think the more time that Wilder has in between this rematch, the better for him. And I think that it'd be a better situation for him if he waited to take that rematch. I think he's got a lot of he's the champ, or he's the former champ now, but he's always going to be a champion in his mind and his heart. So he's got that pride that makes him want to get right back into it and fight that same fight over and get that win right back. But I think the smarter, and what I feel like the people around him need to be telling him is, take your time and you'll get that fight back. There, let him go fight Joshua. Let him go fight Joshua. There's some major things that need to change in Wilder's game for him to get the win against Fury, and that's not going to change in the months that have passed since their last fight. It was a strategic reason that he lost, because Fury realized that he couldn't fight backing up, and that's not going to change, in that amount of time. There's some real work that needs to be done before he can correct that. But I mean, Wilder's got a right hand that can correct anything, so I'm not saying it can't be done. He could get in there and he could knock him out. But with how competitive the first fight was and how just one-sided the second fight was, I feel like there's some major things that need to be changed, and some time that needs to be spent in Wilder's camp to correct the mistakes before he goes right back into the Fury fight. And he'll have the training camp, but just I feel like it's things that are like really deep-rooted issues that need to be corrected. But that's just my opinion, and I've been in Wilder's corner since before the fight, thinking and hoping that he would win the fight, even though I've been a big Fury fan too. But I'm hoping that Wilder can get it done the best way he can.
And that's one of the great things about the heavyweight division right now, that there's so much talent there. And like if that trilogy between Fury and Wilder doesn't happen, you also have the fight that you mentioned, the UK undisputed fight between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. If we don't see the trilogy between them, if Wilder steps aside for a moment, takes another fight, and we do see the UK unification, who do you give the edge to Fury or Joshua?
I give the edge to Fury, just because I think that AJ is pretty similar to the way that Klitschko fought. I think that it'll be kind of a similar fight to when Fury fought Klitschko. I think that Fury's just going to make it a really cagey, really awkward fight, stay behind his jab and just box. And but Joshua, being younger than Klitschko was at the time and being a little bit more, being in his prime, I feel like it's going to be a lot tougher of a fight for Fury than that, but I think it could be similar in ways too. And I think I'd give Fury the edge just based on boxing ability and I think that where this is all, I think that Fury's pedigree is showing throughout all this. I feel like he's got the deepest fighting roots than Wilder or Joshua. They both started fairly old, and it's showing through. And it showed through in the Wilder fight, because so much of that just had to do with ring IQ, just to make that adjustment and come in the second fight and completely fight a different fight. That had so much to do with just his level of IQ in the ring. And I feel like that's going to be similar when he fights Joshua. I just think that his mind in the ring is just on a whole nother level than the other heavyweights right now.
Well, we'll see what happens. Hopefully boxing comes back soon, and there's options in the heavyweight division. There's options, honestly, in every division. And your fight from April 11th that was postponed, hopefully, you're able to take care of that fight really soon, and we see you back in action. Joey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really appreciate it. I want to say congratulations once again to you and your wife. Happy belated birthday. Hopefully, everything's well. And you stay safe.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, of course. Take care. You too. Bye-bye.